will this new wage give young workers a foot in the door, or is that door slamming shut in their face? Joining me now from Wellington is the convener of the youth movement union Stand Up, James Sleep. James, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Your thoughts on that comment just being made by the Retailers Association that this gives more youth an opportunity?
Well, I think there's actually there's 3 points to make about this, and the first is that this announcement is actually grossly unfair to the next generation. Young people have not had any role in creating this economic downturn that has caused this youth unemployment and wider unemployment problem. And so it's unfair that the government would place the burden on young people and cut their wage by 20%, for which they say it's going to create 2,000 jobs. This won't create jobs. This will simply put young people into poverty. $10.80 an hour is not a living wage. Young people, a lot of young people, 16 to 19, actually, are facing the rising cost of living. They're paying for normal things that other workers are paying for, and I don't quite understand how anyone can live on $10.80 an hour.
Well, James, I think the government's here aiming this not at those who are already working, but they're aiming this at those who at the moment are unemployed, possibly living on benefit. Therefore, they say the opportunity to earn, even albeit a reduced wage of $10.80, must be a positive thing.
Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of strategy you're wanting to roll out. Whether it's an agenda to actually drive down wages to create a competitive advantage, which is low wages in New Zealand, or whether you want an agenda that is to grow productive jobs, high-value jobs, high-wage jobs, and this is simply going in the opposite direction to the latter. Young people need wraparound support. We need policies in place that actually support business to take on young people, but also support young people themselves and not put them into poverty. So this is something that doesn't do both. It does one thing, and we're concerned that a very small group of employers will use this to simply hire cheap labour. They won't put in the investment into young people, and therefore they're going to make some significant savings on their labour costs at the expense of young workers. It's simply unacceptable.
You say a very small number of employers, so you'd agree the vast majority of employers, they might look at this as an opportunity to be able to give a young worker a chance. And then you talk about high value. Were they hardworking? Were they good? Were they an asset to the organisation? Then they get taken further within it. So that surely has to be a positive thing.
So we believe that all workers in this country should have the same minimum wage. And it's about fairness for everybody. And so, I mean, a recent report, actually, the advice to the government from the Ministry of Business and Innovation was that this could potentially drive older workers out of work at the, in order to actually give some young people a few jobs. It wasn't a significant number. It was sort of, this might create a few jobs here, but actually cut a few jobs here. What kind of policy is that? What kind of economy are we running here, where we're driving down wages for a group of workers who, through no fault of their own, have been unable to find work? They need wraparound support. Businesses need support to take on young people, but not at the expense of young workers who need good jobs, decent jobs, but actually jobs that pay a living wage, not a wage that's going to drive them into poverty.
James, valid concern that maybe younger workers will take the place of more mature workers if the wages are that much cheaper, but that would benefit the people you represent.
But that's not the kind of economy we want, is it? I mean, do we want to be driving out older workers an expense for a few young people? In fact, we're not talking about big numbers here, we're talking about small numbers. I mean, I want to remind the government that youth unemployment in this country is at a staggering level. They don't actually have a comprehensive plan to address this. Simply giving some employers the ability to cut the wages of young workers is not going to address this significant problem. We need answers from this government. We need wraparound support for young people and businesses. They need to beef up their job ops scheme, which subsidises roles in the workplace, but doesn't actually mean that young people will be driven into poverty. So we need real answers from this government on this issue.
The government says that the Department of Labour research showed that up to 9,000, between 4,500 and 9,000 jobs were lost when Labour scrapped the youth rates in 2008, I think. So they do see this as something potentially which could create thousands of jobs, albeit at a lower wage.
I reject that. The Hyslop and Stillman study last year said that actually the abolition of youth rates did not increase youth unemployment. The Stillman and Hyslop survey in research in 2004 actually said that when youth rates were abolished for 19 to 20-year-olds, there was actually an increase in young people heading into work. So I reject that analysis and actually, again, go back to the bigger picture here is that what kind of economy are we trying to create with this policy? Are we trying to force young people and drive young people to Australia or to other places around the world where they're actually taking an investment approach in young people, or are we simply wanting to drive down wages in this country, prioritise other people over other people? We have a bigger problem here, which is overall unemployment is high. Young people are at the end of that queue. We have a jobs crisis in this country. The government said a few days ago that there isn't a jobs crisis in this country. They're wrong. The way to get young people into employment is to address the overall issue of a lack of jobs. This government simply doesn't have a plan for that.
All right, James Sleep from Stand Up, thanks for joining.